Good afternoon, it's exactly 3 p.m. Cairo local time. You tuned into Channel 2. Now it's time for the English News Bulletin. This is Reem Tamer along with my very dear colleague, Sarah Slim. Good afternoon, Sarah.
Hello, Reem. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Now we will start our news bulletin with the headlines. Under the auspices of President Fattah al-Sisi, the first international seminar for the Egyptian Iftah House launches. UN Special Envoy for Syria, Geir Pedersen, urges foreign powers to work to avoid the collapse of vital Syrian institutions. Russia says its forces captured villages in two key frontline areas of eastern Ukraine.
Welcome back, the news in full. The first international seminar for the Egyptian Iftah House was launched on Sunday, marking the International Fatwa Day. The title of the event, held under the auspices of President Fattah al-Sisi, is Fatwa and Achieving Intellectual Security. The two-day seminar is witnessing expanded participation from ministers, senior state officials, and scholars from Egypt and abroad. Organizers said it comes at a very important time to face new contemporary intellectual challenges in order to contribute to achieving stability and sustainable development. They said it also aims to cement cooperation among fatwa institutions across the globe and drafting views and suggestions to develop fatwa systems to cope with challenges.
Speaker of House of Representatives, Councillor Hanif El-Gebali, stressed on Egypt's firm stance from the beginning of the Syrian crisis, reiterated on the necessity of reaching a political solution. He confirmed that Egypt will remain supporter for its Arab brothers, denouncing the Israeli aggressions in occupied Golan. Meanwhile, El-Gebali called the international community not to ignore the Israelis' violation in Syria and the interference in internal Syrian affairs.
Turkish Defense Minister Yasar Güler said that the new administration in Syria should be given a chance to govern following their constructive messages, and Turkey stands ready to provide military training if such help is requested. NATO member Turkey backed the Syrian rebels who toppled President Bashar al-Assad last weekend, ending a 13-year civil war. Turkey reopened its embassy in Damascus on Saturday, 2 days after its intelligence chief visited the Syrian capital since 2016. Turkey has mounted 4 military operations across growing swaths of northern Syria, citing threats to its national security.
Syrian troops announced that the Israeli occupation troops launched more than 60 raids on military points in Syria and targeted missile depots and weapons store and military division locations. Meanwhile, the Syrian armed factions leader Ahmad al-Shara condemned Israel for its incursion into southern Syria, but asserted that the situation in Syria is critical and couldn't afford more conflicts.
UN Special Envoy for Syria, Geir Pedersen, urged foreign powers to work to avoid the collapse of vital Syrian institutions following the downfall of leader Bashar al-Assad. He also called for providing humanitarian aid into Syria as quickly as possible. A Qatari diplomat said on Friday that a delegation from the Gulf Emirate would visit Syria on Sunday to meet transitional government officials for talks on aid and reopening its embassy.
Students returned to classrooms in Syria today after the country's new rulers ordered schools reopened in a potent sign of some normalcy a week after rebels swept into the capital. Officials said most schools were opening around the country on Sunday, which is the first day of the working week in most Arab countries.
Gaza's Civil Defense Agency said Israeli strikes on the territory killed 17 people, including 7 at a UN school housing displaced people. Civil Defense spokesman said there were 7 people killed, including women and children, and at least 10 wounded when Israeli warplanes targeted Al-Majid Wasila school west of Gaza City. The school was run by the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees, but like many such facilities, it has been turned into a makeshift shelter for those displaced by the war war in Gaza. The vast majority of Gaza's population has been displaced.
The director of Medical Relief Association in the Gaza Strip said the health sector in the Strip works under huge pressure due to ongoing and intensifying Israeli aggression on Wednesday. The UN World Food Programme said 8 convoys were attacked by Israeli forces in Gaza. Also, the United Nations said humanitarian aid to North Gaza has largely been blocked for the past 66 days, leaving between 65,000 and 75,000 Palestinians without access to food, water, electricity, or health care.
Lebanon's health ministry said an Israeli drone strike in the south killed 1 person on Saturday, the latest deadly raid despite a more than 2-week ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah. The health ministry said in a statement that an Israeli enemy drone strike killed 1 person in Marjayoun district and a car was targeted.
Russia said its forces had captured villages in 2 key frontline areas of eastern Ukraine as they advanced towards the supply hub of Pokrovsk and the industrial town of Korakhov. The defense ministry said in a daily briefing that troops had liberated the village of Vasily Gai south of Korakhov and the village of Pushkin south of Pokrovsk, both in the Donetsk region. Russia has been grinding forward for a month in the Donetsk region, and its troops have recently accelerated their advance. They captured more Ukrainian territory in November than in any month since March 2022. Ukraine's troops on Sunday reported ongoing exhausting clashes on the outskirts of Korakhov and in the town itself, as well as further north in the heavily battered hilltop town of Chasiv Yar. The troops said that the situation is complex and changing.
South Korea's opposition leader urged the top court on Sunday to swiftly formalize the impeachment of President Yoon Suk-yeol and ease the suffering of the people after his short-lived martial law decree. Details follow.
South Korea's acting president Han Duck-soo moved on Sunday to reassure the country's allies and calm financial markets a day after President Yoon Suk-yeol was impeached and suspended from his duties over a martial law attempt. The White House and Han's office said that Han spoke with U.S. President Joe Biden by phone. In a further attempt to stabilize the Asian nation's leadership, the main opposition party announced it would not seek to impeach Han for his involvement in Yoon's December 3 martial law decision. Prosecutors said Yoon did not appear on Sunday in response to a summons for questioning in a criminal investigation into his martial law decision, and they promised to issue another order. Yoon and a number of senior officials face potential charges of insurrection, abuse of authority, and obstructing people from exercising their rights. Han, a longtime technocrat picked by the conservative Yoon as prime minister, was elevated to acting president in accordance with the constitution while Yoon's case moves to the Constitutional Court. Demonstrators seeking Yoon's ouster braved the cold to throng the streets outside the National Assembly building where he was impeached. The crowd was about 200,000 according to police.
Now moving to the world of economics and business news, international expert in sustainability and evaluating climate change risks, Ambassador Mustafa Al-Sherbini, asserted that the Egyptian strategy for green energy corresponds to the global roadmap which the UN General Assembly adopted in September 2022. Al-Sherbini added that Egypt achieved great progress in the global changes issue and established solar energy stations in Bimban with a capacity of 1,800 giga, as well as another wind station in the Gulf of Suez area and Zafarona. He pointed that the Egyptian strategy for energy has the goal of emission reduction by 33% by 2040.
The German central bank sharply downgraded its growth forecast for 2025 and 2026, predicted a prolonged period of weakness for Europe's biggest economy as it battles multiple headwinds. The Bundesbank forecast output will grow a mere 0.2% in 2025, down from a forecast in June of a 1.1% expansion. For 2026, it forecast growth of 0.8%, down from a 1.4% expansion expected previously.
Welcome back to the exciting world of sports. Riddled with anxiety about Manchester City's shocking decline, Pep Guardiola endured another sleepless night as he tries to pose more problems for Ruben Amorim in the Manchester United manager's first taste of the Premier League's most explosive rivalry. For the first time in years, City go into the Manchester Derby mired in even more turmoil than United after this run of 1 win in 10 games in all competitions. Wednesday's 2-0 Champions League defeat at Juventus was City's 7th loss in that period, an astonishing collapse for a club that has won 6 of the last 7 Premier League titles, including their current streak of 4 in a row.
Dear viewers, this brings us to the end of this news bulletin. That was Reem Tamer along with my very dear colleague, Sarah Slim. Thank you so much, Sarah.
Thank you, Reem. It was a pleasure to be with you today. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for watching, and stay tuned for the coming updates on the top of the hour. Thank you.